Welcome to the Directors Guild of Canada BC's online learning system. The module you've just started will provide an overview of the function of the Directors Guild of Canada in BC and of DGC BC Respectful Workplaces. It should take about 15 minutes for you to complete this module. First, let's take a quick look at the structure of the DGC BC and how it functions. The Directors Guild is a national organization, and the DGC BC is the district council here in British Columbia. The DGC has 8 district councils across Canada. Despite the name, the Guild is 100% a union. This is true because the employers recognize the Guild's jurisdiction in BC as a labour organization and negotiate a collective agreement with us. Our collective agreement is negotiated with the major American studios by their bargaining arm, which is called the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, or AMPTP, as well as with the Canadian Media Producers Association, or CMPA. This is different from across the rest of Canada, where they negotiate with the CMPA only. Our collective agreement is only in force in British Columbia. The DGC is a democratic organization. As such, it's run for the members and by the members. The Guild is run by a group of members who are elected by the membership on an annual basis. Each district council has an elected executive board that oversee the policies of the local organization. There is also a National Executive Board, or NEB, that provides oversight of national policies. The NEB is populated from within the elected of the district councils, along with a group of elected National Caucus representatives from across the country. Operations at all levels are carried out by staff based on those policies set by the elected. So if you want to influence DGC BC policies, start getting involved. Read the newsletter, go to meetings, get to know the candidates and vote in elections, talk to your caucus rep when you have concerns. And if you want the most active voice, run for office. By now, you know that the collective agreement is the document that sets out the wages and working conditions that you work under. It's important for every DGC BC member to have read the collective agreement so you will know the rights of those you hire, and you also need to know your own rights in the workplace. The collective agreement can be found on the DGC BC website at the link provided. Now, let's talk about respectful workplaces. Let's begin by having a look at what locations and situations are considered to be workplaces in the context of a respectful workplace scenario. Using this list, certainly it's clear that you are in a workplace while working on a set or in a production office. Many may think that things get murkier when the employment relationship hasn't yet been clearly established, such as during a job interview, or where it may have been completed, for example at a wrap party. Non-production related networking events such as guild or supplier-hosted parties may seem like a gray area as well. What if a group of coworkers have left the set and gone to a restaurant or a bar nearby? Or if you attend a private party that's either hosted or attended by people you work with? The fact is that the location is not the key determining factor in whether or not behavior can be interpreted as workplace harassment. The salient question is whether or not the nexus of the interaction is the result of an employment relationship. Let's look at some examples that help to explain this. You might look at the list of potential, quote, workplaces and think that the house party that's listed at the bottom seems like a pretty unlikely candidate to be considered a workplace. However, if the reason you're there is to drop off the locations van to your boss or coworker who lives or happens to be there, the nexus of your presence is work, and that may make the otherwise unlikely space into a workplace for you. On the other hand, if you're on a film set because you're visiting a friend or a family member and have no employment-based relationship with the production yourself, then while it would be a workplace where your friend is concerned, from your perspective, it would not be. So in determining whether or not an interaction is workplace harassment, the question to ask yourself is, am I in this interaction due to employment or potential employment? If the answer is yes, then regardless of the location you're in, there's an expectation that the people involved will conduct themselves appropriately. That said, how and where a complaint is filed varies depending on the situation. The entities shown here all have the potential to be involved in a harassment complaint. If you were currently engaged on a production when the incident occurred, the formal order of contact would look like this. Anytime you're working on a production, your direct supervisor would be your first point of contact, assuming that they themselves are not the subject of the complaint. If your direct supervisor is not able to resolve the situation, you would then escalate your complaint through the chain of command within the production as the situation dictated until a resolution is achieved. If your direct supervisor, department head, and production manager all fail to assist you appropriately, on most shows, certainly all U.S. studio productions, there will be an HR person engaged at the studio level who can be reached. If none of these entities are able to resolve the situation, the DGC are a resource to guide and assist. WorkSafe BC may also, in some of the most serious situations, become involved. WorkSafe's involvement in harassment issues is mostly based in education and awareness. Their role is to ensure that an employer has adequate policy, procedures, and training in place to address related claims. Many useful resources and informational documents can be found on their website under the Health and Safety tab in the A to Z index of health and safety topics. If at the onset you're unsure about the process or whether or not the situation you're in would be considered workplace harassment, a call to the DGC BC can be a great place to start. Calls you make to your union are fully confidential, and your union rep will not take any action, contact anyone, or otherwise intervene unless you expressly ask them to. Likely, you will either speak to the business agent or an assistant business agent, and they will be able to offer you information as to how the process works, whether or not your situation qualifies as harassment, and what your options are moving forward given the circumstances. If you experience harassment while you are not engaged on a production, for example, if something happened at a union or supplier-hosted gathering, a union meeting, or a job interview, the DGC BC would be the best place to start. There may be an employer involved that isn't instantly obvious. For example, if you were harassed by an employee at an industry supplier's office party, the supplier would be the employer. If it turns out that there's no employer involved and no resolution is reached, you will still be able to access resources in the form of advocacy and mental health supports through the DGC BC. In situations without an employer, where harassment is between two DGC BC members, the DGC BC Executive Board may also determine if there is action that they can take to correct the situation. Under the Guild bylaws, Section 14 and 15, DGC BC members are responsible to adhere to the organization's code of conduct. Behavior that constitutes conduct unbecoming a member may lead to mandatory referrals for training or counseling, discipline, or in the most serious cases, fines, suspension, or termination of membership. The DGC BC Code of Conduct and Bylaws can all be found on the website on the introduction page. There are also Respectful Workplace resources available on the site under the tab called About Us. Now let's consider the type of behaviors that do and do not belong within a respectful workplace. Harassment consists of things like calling people names, being insulting or verbally aggressive, vandalizing a person's things, sabotaging their work, spreading gossip or rumors, hazing, threats, whether physical or verbal, or attacking a person based on their private life or personal traits, inappropriate gestures, or any sort of behavior that would reasonably be expected to make a person feel humiliated or intimidated, which are the specific words that are used within the WorkSafe BC regs. It's important to keep in mind that not all situations that may feel uncomfortable are harassment. Within a workplace, there must always be an ability for supervisors and coworkers to discuss things about which they may have different opinions, provide and receive guidance, feedback, or advice on a person's performance or their behavior, and there must be a procedure through which legitimate complaints can be brought. There are also actions that a manager must be able to take within the course of doing their job. These include management-related duties and decisions, such as those related to work performance and/or duties, timelines and workloads, instructions, feedback, and other supervisory responsibilities, and of course, the hardest of all management tasks to take on, discipline, suspensions, and terminations. These are all captured within the WorkSafe BC guidelines. It's also very important to keep in mind what's called the intent-impact gap. Following complaints of bullying and harassment, people often say that they didn't intend to bully a person, so they feel that their behavior should be given a pass. In these situations, it is the impact of a person's actions that is considered to be of paramount importance. It's also important to understand what outcomes a complainant can hope for when they've brought forward a complaint. The media coverage following the onset of the Me Too movement may seem to indicate that the only acceptable outcome to a serious bullying and harassment charge would be for the respondent to lose their job. This outcome may be appropriate in the most egregious of situations, but those are very rare. In most situations, the intent behind any corrective action is to assure that the behavior stops and is not repeated. It's also important to note that due to Canadian privacy laws, complainants will not receive any sort of detailed reporting of outcomes. Aside from being told that the situation has been dealt with appropriately, specific information and details will be withheld. With luck, you'll work for supervisors who know how to deal with all of these emotional subjects in a way that feels both constructive and kind. If you're unsure if a person's lack of skill amounts to actual harassment, you can always call the DGC to get some advice. As for those bosses you may encounter who are less skilled at these difficult tasks, there are really two ways to deal with that. The first is to try and avoid working with them in future, and the second is to use the behavior as a cue as to your own treatment of coworkers. Be conscious to notice how this treatment feels so you can avoid becoming a similar type of leader as you move up the ranks. Instead, focus on your team being made up of human beings who will always need your guidance, kindness, consideration, and empathy. It's not your team's responsibility not to make mistakes. Rather, it is your responsibility to respond to those mistakes by coaching them to better performance and reassuring them that everybody makes errors, even you. Nobody on your team should ever feel they've been treated as disposable, even if you don't see things the way they do. And of course, no discussion of respectful workplaces would be complete without mentioning the worst-case scenario. If you or someone you know is assaulted in the workplace, call the police. Every single person in the workplace has a responsibility to behave in a respectful fashion, no matter what the situation. This should be your aim in every interaction. If you're a supervisor and someone on your team requires discipline, find a respectful way to administer it. If someone does something that puts others at risk, explain that to them respectfully. If a situation or a person makes you angry, take a breath and find the words to express that anger with respect. I hope you've enjoyed this video module. If you have any thoughts or comments on this module, please feel free to share them with us by emailing training@dgcbc.com.